Welcome to today's tutorial. In our previous tutorial, we have seen how we can use basic or somewhat advanced or intermediate level of Excel using some of the features like power pivot table and some trend lines and sparkle lines, all of this stuff, correct? And while we were working on that video, we have seen that we have created more sets of columns than the one which was already provided to us. The intent was to create a story from that data, and that data which was provided was not self-sufficient to create any kind of story. Correct? So with this concept, let's explore an advanced feature what we have in Excel that is known as Power Pivot. But let me tell you that in Power Pivot, we are not going, we would discuss more on the features of Power Pivot. We would not think much from this reporting perspective because reporting perspective, creating charts, creating different tabs, different other views, it's already been done in our previous video, correct? So this video I will solely create to make you understand all the features which are available in Power Pivot. Okay. So before we start our tutorial, let me give you an introduction of Power Pivot. I guess you might be aware of pivot table. So pivot table is where you load some kind of data from a table and try to summarize it, correct? So when you connect a table, it's always that you are going to connect a single table. If that's the requirement, sorry, then you would use pivot table, normal pivot table. However, as we are working in the data world, correct? And a single table is like next to impossible, which we can play around with. You will get n number of tables, multiple dimension data sets you will be getting, correct? And it would be required from you that you connect all those tables and then create a story. The dataset which was provided or the sample dataset is really very easy. And believe me, in real world, that kind of easy stuff, it's very rare to get. Okay, so pivot table will only handle a single dimension or single table. Power pivot, on the other hand, is a multi-dimensional table handling capability is there. So you can connect more than one tables, then you can join it using some kind of joins. Okay, that means a table, sorry, a column should be common between both the tables. Then you can enhance the data sets using the same feature what we have seen, extending it by different columns, and then you can create the story what you are looking into. Okay, so with this, let's start our journey. So I'm not going to discuss or I will not create same kind of views again, but for demo purpose, definitely I will show you how we would be creating the same thing using Power Pivot. So this was the last video, or sorry, this Excel is being used in the last video. So let's start with a fresh one, which would be like version 2 for us. Okay, and let me go to, oh yes, sorry. Let me go to this pivot table and I would add this to data model. Okay, so when you click on this add to data model, that means the data which is present here will get added to our pivot table. Power pivot, okay. Oops, sorry, this table is already present. I was just by mistake I loaded it, I guess. Okay, right. So let me close this. Yeah. So I will load this data. Okay, so this table is now loaded to Power Pivot. So let me once again show you. This is normal Excel, correct? When you add Power Pivot to Office 2016, you will get another tab for Power Pivot. When you click on this, you will get all these features. If the data is already present in that Excel workbook and you want to load that to the Power Pivot data model, just click on this. Or else other ways, other field or other table which you can load, I will show you in quickly. So you just click on manage. Once you do this, another window will open which is specific to Power Pivot. Okay, so this is not Excel window, this is Power Pivot window. If you want to go to Excel, just click on this Excel and I will go back to that. Okay, so we'll click on manage. So when we do add to data model, the data which is present in that Excel itself will get loaded to the data model. However, there might be that you want to load few more tables. To do that, you have to select whichever how you're going to get the external data, either from a database, correct, from access from SQL or some any other stuff, or from some kind of data feed, okay, or any other data sources. Once I click on this, we'll see there are so many data sources which are present. You will find Excel, flat files, some other analytical services, any other databases which are present. Okay, and then using this, you can load the required tables and it will get loaded into this window, which is Power Pivot window. Okay. Now, once you have loaded the data, you will be you will get the capability to add the columns. Okay, so let's see what all columns we have added previously. So this is our version 1 and we would try to do the same thing here. So this is my phase 1, which is like assigned. I will copy the same stuff there and I will show you one strange and very good behavior. Okay, where is Power Pivot? This is one. So I want to add a column. We'll give a column name and I will Power Pivot is a little bit slow sometime. Okay, and then I will say once I press sample, it will give me all the fields which are present in that sample table. Okay, so this is very useful feature. Suppose that you have 5, 6 or any other number of tables and you know the name of the tables, and definitely you can use this to refer and then you will get all the fields associated to that table. So I need driver assigned, or rather it was driver accepted, correct? So driver accepted minus sample driver assigned and press enter. Once you do this, you have to change the format here. So it's a date and time format. So first I will format it with date and then it will tell me further what kind of format, the same thing which we have used in our version 1. So I will use same and we would get this data. If you remember that there were few data sets which had this data set is not that clean, correct? So we have seen that there are few data sets which are placed uh, wrongly, sorry. So let me highlight this one. So if you see the driver accepted, oh, sorry, this one. Driver accepted at 107. However, the task was assigned or the order was assigned on 109. So that's wrong, correct? However, in Excel, we have seen that it was giving an error. Power Pivot, it will not give you an error. It will assume that the data is not that it's not placed correctly. So it will try to use its own intelligence and it will tackle saying that, okay, so I'm assuming that this is my start date and this is my end date. As you have mentioned, this is it's a date column. Okay. So date column, when you say, then it will assume that negative date it's not possible or negative time is not possible. So it will assume that it's interchanged. Okay. This is one of the good features, but again, it's something which might not be, which you will see in day in, day out because the data might be clean at least. Okay. So this is one thing which is very important in pivot table perspective. So this is a calculated column which we have inserted, correct? So this is one way, and then I would suggest that you can add all this one by one to this pivot table, power pivot, sorry, and then you can experiment that whether the view what you have created here, you are able to do it or not. Okay, and I would try to show you one more thing in pivot table, that once you are done with this entire data set, that means you have added few more extra columns, and you're confident that all the extra columns what you have generated is good to go for you to create some kind of story. If that's the thing, then you can start creating reports using use pivot charts or pivot tables, correct? How to do that? Once I click on this, you will see that there are so many options present here. Let's select four charts. It will ask that whether you want to create a new, I want to create a new sheet, and you see that there are four charts associated to one pivot table in Power Pivot, sorry. And in our previous video, we have seen that to create that kind of view, we have to add so many pivot tables, and we have to place it in one sheet, and then we can cut the um, chart from there and paste it in executive view, correct? But here you can see that we can add more tables or more charts, and we need four charts right now, correct? And all those four charts can be created using one pivot table. Let's see, I will show you. So if I want to see area wise, what is the count of the order, correct? So once I do this, the same thing what we have done here, you can see the value here, correct? This is the one view, and second view is, again I selected this and the pivot table is getting added here. And now let's do a vendor and count of the orders. So it will give you that how many orders were placed by all the vendors, correct? Or how many were tackled by the vendors. If you want to see top 10, again, you click on this, come here, top. Previously, we have done top 10, right? So let's do increase it to top 15. Okay, count of this, correct? So now you can see that you two views we have used, creating only one pivot table or power pivot, correct? So like this, you can create all this. This is one of the great features that you can, once you are done with the data set or your pivot power pivot data set, you can create a number of charts. That is a very good feature. So this is one of the good features. Now let's try to explore a few more stuff. Uh, so let me tell you that if you want to explore more on Power Pivot, then we should have some kind of multi-dimensional tables. Otherwise, it's not going to be much helpful to you. And second thing is that the formula which we are doing it here, it is known as DAX language, which is data analysis expression language. It's not similar to the Excel formula what we have. It is something advanced to Excel formulas, because here we have calculated columns, okay, and we have calculated measures. So what do we mean by calculated measures? Suppose I want to count the rows here. Either I can do it in pivot table itself, or I can count it here. Or rather, let's see if we have some value which we can do a sum. Unfortunately, here we don't have any. However, let's assume that I want to do or calculate total distance covered or total distance which are present in this particular data set. How to do that? that we have to do using calculated measure. And how calculated measure works, you have, it's little typical different way, but let me explain. So calculated measure, I want to do sum, or rather total distance. With this, the formula will start sum, and it will give you which column you want to sum. I want to do a sum on this, and once I press this, it will give the value. It will evaluate for a while, and then it will give the value as this. Correct? So DAX language is really very interesting. If you get a chance to work on multidimensional data, then I would request that send me the data. I will try to create some useful videos for you. However, just for learning perspective, I would suggest that DAX is something which is really challenging, and you have to understand the basics of DAX. If I give you the formula, you cannot write the code of your own, or you cannot draft the or author the formula of your own, because you have to understand the filter context. You have to understand if there are two tables which is getting joined, definitely one table will get a, from a joining perspective, one side of the table will have many side of present in another table, correct? So which all formula you have to use when you're trying to do a summation from one to many, or from many to one. So these kind of concepts are really very important to understand before you try to create any tax formula. So I would request that if you want to learn that, you have to create the necessity, and you have to have those data sets handy. Then only we can play around with that. Okay, so this was just a flavor of telling you that how pivot table is very importantly being used an advanced way as power pivot. Okay, pivot table you can definitely use, but power pivot is like it will work like a magic for you. Okay, so with this, I end up our tutorial here. If you have any doubt, do let me know in the comment section. Thank you.